Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard the TV Pilot's License Plate number 25 with service to New York, New York, and the Manhattan Criminal Court. We ask that you please fasten your headphones at this time, secure your podcasting device, and remember...
Hey, Max, heads or tails?
Go heads.
All right.
All rise for the Honorable TV Pilot's License.
Honorable is a questionable phrase.
You may be seated.
Welcome to the TV Pilot's License. My name is Geoff Kerbis, joined by Max Singer and Rich Inman. How are you boys doing today?
Doing great. Hey, Jeff, what would have happened if the coin landed on tails?
I just have a coin that is only heads, so congrats, Max. You picked the right one.
Fitting for today. Great.
Yeah, exactly. Well, today, boys, we are talking about the original 1984 Night Court. Just based off of the new Night Court series that is just recently debuted on NBC. But before we dive too much into it, Max, why don't you tell the people a little bit about what this podcast is all about?
Sure thing. So here at TV Pilot's License, we break down and analyze the pilot episodes of some of television's most famous, or in some cases, infamous shows. We figure out how these shows came to be and were greenlit, if they're effective pilots that make us want to watch more, and if we think these shows can be made today. In today's case, yes. But we've got a whole bunch of episodes wherever you get your podcasts from. So go back, listen to some ones that you may love, find a show you may never have seen before, and if it is your first time flying with us today, then welcome aboard.
And Rich, what is your question of the week this week?
So obviously this is a entire show based around the legal system of the United States, and I'm curious if any of you guys had any run-ins with the law, and what that story might be, and how would Judge Harry handle this?
All right.
How would they find you?
So I'll begin. My only infraction with the law was I grew up, and I actually currently am in my childhood home in Florida. And if anyone knows about the famous East Coast Highway I-95, when you're driving on
Miami to Maine, baby.
Miami to Maine, but when you're driving on it, it is also from basically Delray Beach to Miami. It's one of the most dangerous stretches of highway in the United States because the average driver is 75 and can't see. So, when I was in high school, I was driving, and I had a driver slam into the side of me, which then caused a 5-car pileup. Afterwards, we were all talking to the police because the guy who slammed into the side of me refused to admit what had happened. But the policeman very, very suavely just said, "How fast were you going? How fast were you going? How fast were you going?" And he caught me saying the speed limit was 65, and I said 70. Because I was going 70 miles per hour and telling the honest truth. So I was the only person who got a ticket. I was not at fault for the accident. Thank you, because that would have been terrible, and I never would have been able to get insurance again. But I did have to go to court and fight the ticket, and luckily I won because the police officer did not show up because he had something better to do. Thank you, court system. Max, what about you?
My freshman year of college, like many young Americans, I was cited for an underage drinking infraction. Look, it happens to the best of us. I did an 8-hour course on a Saturday afternoon, and the charges were totally expunged from my record. Although I like to think that Judge Harry T. Stone would have come up with a slightly more creative way to teach me a life lesson.
Yeah, you want to drink? All right, you're going to drink this entire box of Miller 64s.
You have to do what was that game where you have to tape the malt liquor to your hands? Do you guys know
Edward 40 hands?
Yeah, you have to do Edward 40 hands right in front of everyone here. Rich, what about you?
Like most of us who have been to college or grew up in the Midwest, we all kind of have a beef with the Northwest Indiana Highway Patrol system that they have going on. They have got me several times at going very minor amounts over a speed limit, while the speed limits change quite a bit going into Chicago. So I just want to say ACAB specifically for the Northwest Indiana Highway Patrol System.
Yeah, Gary, Indiana.
Yeah.
And now, a very special answer to Rich's question of the week from an in-flight guest.
Hey guys, this is Ben. First time, long time. Calling for a great story from an actual lawyer. So when I was a local prosecutor in Gloucester County, Virginia, which, as I'm sure none of your listeners will know, it is a real small county on the tide area of Virginia with not a lot going on. I was a local prosecutor there, and I got this kid, Jesse Green. Now, Jesse looks like everybody's high school weed dealer, right? 6'4", big shaggy hair, really smart, but smoked too much pot to do much with himself. And this guy was just like the talk of the town. Tons of trouble, always getting in and out of stuff. And he gets pulled over one night. He's riding shotgun in a car down this old country dirt road, gets pulled over and ends up getting a cop kind of walk up to the side of his door, takes one look at him, knows exactly who he is, and smells a whole bunch of pot. So this cop wasn't just any other cop, though. This cop was named Sergeant Johnson. So Sergeant Johnson goes up and sees Jesse sitting in the car, and he's like, Jesse, I smell some weed. Gets Jesse out, starts searching the car, finds some weed, goes to arrest Jesse, does what's called a search incident to an arrest, and from there gives Jesse a pat down. So Sergeant Johnson is giving Jesse this pat down and feels a hard object shoved in Jesse's groin area. Feels this hard object and turns to Jesse. Mind you, this is all on body cam. Turns to Jesse and says, Jesse, what you got in your crotch there, kid? And Jesse says, oh, that's my dick, man. And he looks at him and he goes, Jesse, that's not your dick. I know what a dick feels like, and that ain't it. And Jesse goes, oh, it's just my dick, man. I've always liked you. So Sergeant Johnson, knowing that it was not, in fact, his dick, turns around and continues his search and pulls out a firearm from in Jesse's, we'll call it his groin area. Jesse gets arrested. We then go to court. We go to the hearing, and there's a motion to suppress the evidence, which is just a fancy way of saying, we're trying to keep this out and claim it was a legal search. So we get to trial, and we get to this motion, and we go through this, and I got Sergeant Johnson on the stand, and Sergeant Johnson is being asked some questions about a defense, and I got to ask him some questions myself. And I turn to him, and I say, Sergeant Johnson, when you conducted this pat down, what did you feel? And he goes, well, I felt something in his groin area. And I said, well, Sergeant Johnson, what did you think it was? He just says, well, I don't know. I have no idea. But it was inconsistent with the human anatomy. And I go,
Well, today we're talking about night court. We are talking about the court of Judge Harold Stone, Harry T. Stone, but let's give a synopsis. An eccentric, fun-loving judge presides over an urban night court and all the silliness going on there. But, as succinct as that description was, Max, can you tell us a little bit more about what went into night court?
Today we are talking about a gentleman by the name of Reinhold Weege and the pilot of Night Court titled All You Need Is Love, which premiered on NBC on January 4th, 1984. So Weege gets his break in Hollywood as a staff writer and then later a producer on the long-running comedy Barney Miller. He's also a writer for MASH in its later seasons. And in 1981, he goes to create the short-lived sitcom for CBS Park Place, which centers around a legal aid clinic in Manhattan. Unfortunately for him, but good for fans of Night Court, Park Place only lasts for 4 episodes before being canceled. However, it does get him approached by NBC and Warner Brothers to help develop a new legal comedy for NBC. Weege starts to sit in on Manhattan's night courts and begins talking with the lawyers and judges who, inhabit these places. And something that Weege learns is, and they allude to this in the pilot, that it's very difficult to get a judge off the bench once they're appointed. And so a lot of the people who are working these night courts are the people we can't get rid of and we need something to do with. But basically, he discovers there's all these characters that reside in the legal system who aren't just your run-of-the-mill district attorneys and judges and things like that. And that becomes the basis for Night Court.
Yeah, so just so I know, and this was a question I had long before I even watched this pilot, Night Court really exists. Like, there's a court that is at night.
Yeah, because one of the things, I think what this is transitioned into is if you have ever seen one of those videos on the internet where one person is in a cell over video and then you see the judge on a different video.
Yes.
And usually there's like
a
30 or
proxy
40
court or
people. Yeah, it's very similar to that. And they'll just have a attending basically representative for those who've been accused, as well as someone from the district attorney fighting on the other side, if necessary.
Okay.
It's also worth pointing out that crime does not have a 9 to 5, Rich.
Wow.
Crime,
normally judges do.
I've also heard crime never pays. So who knows?
Can't pay with the two-headed coin.
That's true.
But getting back to Night Court, what ends up being bad for the show in the short term, but great for it in the long term, is that it actually gets delayed from NBC's pilot slate in 1983, primarily because executives of the network have a really difficult time with the show's lead, Harry Anderson, not being a big enough name to top line a primetime show. Anderson at this point is known as sort of like a variety performer. He does like multiple magic stints on SNL in the late 70s when they did more like variety show things in their early days.
Our first magician on the podcast.
Wow.
He also has a reoccurring role in the early seasons Cheers as Harry the Hat, a con man character. And NBC's just not sure if this is the guy that's going to be able to lead a primetime show and make it successful. This ends up being the best thing that could have ever happened to Night Court, though, this pause. The original 1983 pilot comedy slate at NBC consisted of 3 other shows. Jennifer Slept Here, a comedy about the ghost of a movie star and her friendship with the teenager whose family now lives in her Beverly Hills home.
Oh my God.
I am in. Why aren't we doing that show right now?
Show number 2, We Got It Made, which a beautiful young woman becomes the housekeeper to 2 Manhattan bachelors.
This is all like, sounds like they just spun a wheel of fake 30 Rock shows.
No, this is Mad Libs. This is just Max decided to play Mad Libs instead of do research for 30 minutes.
Cocaine must have been so good in the 80s.
And finally,
Take me away.
My personal favorite pilot from NBC's 1983 slate, Mr. Smith, which is about an orangutan who, through a scientific experiment...
Nope, don't even finish that.
gains an incredible intellect and learns to talk, and he actually becomes a political advisor in Washington, D.C.
You know what's so funny is that's actually the inspiration
that's a true
for Nope.
story. Yeah, no, that's... Oh, no, I was going to say, and that's how we got... who was president in 1983? Reagan.
So all of these shows obviously are canceled after their first seasons. Night Court ends up being a mid-season replacement show in January. It originally airs on Wednesdays following The Facts of Life, but then is moved into NBC's Thursday Must-See TV, which is their like hot promotional block. For those who aren't aware, Must-See TV is a concept that originates in the early 1980s because movie studios are showing commercials for their new movies on Thursdays before they come out on Fridays. So you want to have your hot shows airing on Thursdays so you can get ad revenue in. Studios want to get eyes on movie trailers. So Thursday night primetime becomes really essential for TV networks, starting in like the 1980s with this like commercial boom we have.
I wonder if that's what led Universal to buy NBC. That kind of synergy.
But yeah. Beginning at Night Court's second season, this primetime must-see TV block is The Cosby Show, Family Ties, Cheers, and Night Court from 8 to 10.
That's just wild. That's
had
insane.
this show premiered in September, it would have been in a block with things like Jennifer Slept Here and Mr. Smith, And lo and behold, pushing it back 4 months gets it moved in with Facts of Life and Cheers and Family Ties and Cosby Show and all of these shows that defined the 80s. It's worth noting that this pilot is directed by friend of the pod, hero to Richard Inman, James Jimmy Burrows, as we like to call him around here.
Jimmy!
It's also worth noting, should you watch more of this show, that this pilot is the only appearance of the character Sheila Gardner, played by Gail Strickland. This role was actually just completely rewritten after this episode.
I just would like to inform everyone, after you listen to the podcast, you'll notice that there's a petition for Mr. Smith as well as Jennifer Slept Here to get rebooted. Please make sure to sign those petitions. You can also email me personally at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com if you want to come on board the campaign. Thank you.
Justice for We Got It Made. When is it getting a
reboot? Nope, We
campaign?
Got It Made. I don't want it. But with that said, you guys want to talk about Night Court a little bit more?
Yeah.
I guess kinda.
So I just want to say,
all here.
I want to say this. The new Mario movie starring Chris Pratt is start to come out in a few months. But the cold open of Night Court had the only depiction of Wario I want to see as a painter, with Lana Wagner, the court clerk, and bailiff Bull Shannon opening this first scene as our painter is staring at a couple having a romantic encounter. But this scene was nice because I actually really like the scene. You got an idea of Lana Wagner, this court clerk, is really stressing because today is the first day of the newly appointed judge of the Night Court.
I really like a show where our opening is like, why is today different? Why is today special? Like, why is today different from other days?
Well, it's different because there's off-camera, mainly just referred to sex happening, which is an extremely poignant 70s and 80s sitcom trope, where they refer to something saucy.
This is like a multicam set, too, so that dude's just staring at some, like bags of sand and ropes off stage.
Friends does this. Seinfeld does this. Like a ton of different sitcoms are just like, oh my god, puts on binoculars. Someone's naked outside the apartment window.
And it's a really good acting exercise because you are just staring at a blank wall.
Yeah, right. And what I was going to say is, if anyone in the audience is curious about Max's favorite holiday, it is Passover, because there's so many questions about why this night is different than any other night.
Passover, the original pilot.
Yeah, Passover.
The Pontius pilot, if you will.
Oh no. What I will say, though, is I really enjoyed this scene because it does start off setting the tone of like the sort of jokes that we're going to be getting in this show. Although I do not know who the painter is, I have a ton of the lines written down that he said. My favorite just being like, my wife won't do that. And that is a throwaway line, but the way that this man just purely went after the delivery of this, I really, really enjoyed. But I thought this scene was super interesting because this show, if I described it to someone and said, in one scene we meet almost every single character we're going to care about throughout the run of the show, as well as there's a couple making love, as well as we meet a bailiff who somehow, I don't know how Bull's getting his word of the month. I assume he bought a dictionary. But like, it sounds like a fever dream, but I sort of loved it. What were your guys' thoughts when we were just introduced to like almost too much stuff?
I love this character of Bull Shannon, played by the great character actor Richard Mole. Richard Mole walking so that pro wrestlers could do comedy in the 90s and 2000s into today. Richard Mole, also of the TV show within the movie Jingle All the Way, playing the character of Dementor in the TV version of Turbo Man, a legend to me in my youth.
Yes.
But it's just funny, like, playing that he's, the big lug. His job is to be the big lug, and he gets to do these, like, fun, physical, like, highbrow comedy jokes with his insistence on using big words. I don't know. It's a fun intro.
You're welcome, Dave Bautista.
Yeah, I do love that there is that question that's circling around the internet of who is the greatest wrestling actor of all time, comparing like John Cena, Dave Bautista, The Rock, even Hulk Hogan, if you're a fan. But I think Richard Mole did very much set the tone of what is possible. I do have one line of his written down of, does a bear extravasate in the forest? But like this, I know this gag might just be for one episode. I did not watch more, and that is not what the show is about, but I hope this is a recurring joke, because it really, I would never get tired of this joke, no matter how improperly someone uses words.
Yeah, he is very much a very good wild card character to have in this. Like, kind of doesn't really have any motivation the entire time, is just there to throw in some weird jokes, or just like, you know, something he's going to be fascinated by that way, like during that week's episode, that he can, like, I don't know, just a lot of list game moments for him, and every show needs one.
Yeah. So during this scene, though, we start to meet more of the characters. It's not just Bull. It's not just Lana Wagner. We also have Dan Fielding, our assistant district attorney. Max talked a little bit about Sheila Gardner's, or is it Gardner?
I think Gardner.
Yeah, Gardner's, the public defender's role. And we also have this mysterious figure just walk in, who seems young and juvenile, and almost out of place. And everyone's waiting to meet this judge who, on the mayor's last day, was it the mayor, governor? Someone appointed him on the last day of their time in office as a whole. I did like how they use this device of who's the star of the show to meet the other stars of the show, for the most part, of like, or here's the wacky cast of characters that we're going to meet throughout this, and get a very good sense of, hey, amongst a bunch of squares that are also sort of like silly in their own rights and their own behaviors, what is going to be the thing that interrupts them as a whole.
I like that we get everyone kind of gathered together, be like, what do you think the new kid's going to be like? Dan Fielding, played by the immaculate John Larroquette, has a really, really interesting line here where he says, I hope he can play chess and his name isn't Shecky.
Yeah, does anyone know the reference behind that? Like, who's Shecky?
I don't know. Maybe a Russian chess prodigy that we never heard of in our time. I did really enjoy we're going to talk about John Larroquette in this the entire a lot, especially in the legacy of this show, but it was really fun to just see him playing the serious role in this for the most part. And Sheila Gardner's, like, that character did seem like even a little bit silly, but John Larroquette, it feels like he was just told, hey, you're the district attorney, or you're the assistant district attorney, play it seriously, really just play it straight, at least for the first couple of scenes as a whole. But from here, we find out our mysterious character, this young, fresh-eyed looking man, is our new judge, Judge Harold Harry T. Stone. And hijinks pursue. Now, I don't know about you two gentlemen, but I realized that my brain is broken when Harry pulled out a gun, and I fully expected him to shoot someone, and that be the joke of, oh, he accidentally shot someone, but instead it was a prop gun with, what was that, like a fake snake coming out of it?
Yeah, it's like when you do like the snake in a can prank, but in like gun form.
Yeah, it looked like a t-shirt cannon, like a modern day t-shirt cannon, but just full of that peanut can fake snake thing, which is okay. So here's something I wanted to ask you both. I have this written down in very large bold print. Is this a real studio audience, or is this just canned laughter and clapping? Because it seems they get a lot of points for clapping at that they do not earn whatsoever. So either like I just do not know.
No one goes to a live taping to not clap. You go there because the red light tells you to clap and to laugh, and you've got stage hands telling you what to do.
Rich, you got to be a team player. You got to be a team player.
I mean,
and clap
to an extent.
Sometimes you got to set up your.
You know what? You know who else convinced a lot of people to clap for them just because they thought they had to?
Don't you dare! don't
Jeb Bush,
James Corden.
Let's say Jeb Bush and James Corden.
This is a really interesting cold open though, because it's just hijinks. It's just goofy lines. It says that this is going to be a character-driven, wacky show, but like, do we like it as a pilot cold open?
I am a fan of it because I think it gives me a immediate impression of what I should be expecting. It also, in comparison to a lot of things we've watched, like I was trying to think of the other sitcoms that we've watched in the past. Modern Family. The one that really I compared this to directly was Everybody Loves Raymond, as well as Alf. And like, if you guys remember the beginning of Alf there was a spaceship that crashes into a garage. Everybody Loves Raymond was the terrors of being a mom that's not helped by your husband with 3 children, and also having your in-laws next to you. This was the first one where I was just like, I actually really liked most of the jokes that were included, and I thought like, hey, this gives me a tone of like what I should be expecting. What about you, Rich? Rich, I actually already know. You don't even need to say it.
Yeah, you can see it. For the listeners at home, you could really see it in my eyes. I think a lot of this stuff is like extremely hacky, like sitcom humor, and a lot of the jokes seem very unearned. And there's a premise in sketch writing of like of writing like a very boring like straight man in the in the sketch, and their whole reason for being is just like, what? That's so crazy. That's like to the actual premise of the sketch, and that's what it seems like everyone is compared to Harry T. Stone, which is like, I don't know. It's not doing it for me. I probably shouldn't have given away my own feelings on this so early, but so early in the episode. But yeah, I just think a lot of the jokes have seemed pretty telegraphed, and that's why I was wondering about the canned laughter. Some of the moments that even the actors don't even look like they're having a fun time got like massive laughs out of. So I don't really know what was going on there.
But Max, I'm curious, did you have a fun time in the cold open?
I had a fun time, but when that intro theme kicked in, I think I was more excited for the funky bass and the saxophone than I was about some of the jokes that happened right before that.
Let me just state something for the audience. I think I can speak for all of us when I say, here at the TV Pilot's License podcast, we love a montage intro with some sexy saxophone behind it. And boy, did this do it for me as a whole. I was grooving the entire time of this montage. I was ready to go after this montage as a whole.
It's court, but it's at night. Yeah, it was a very, very gritty post-Taxi Driver New York scenes, which I very much enjoyed. It also, it kind of felt like the SNL cast could have popped out of any like particular moment, because they always do those little like vignettes around New York when they're for the intros every year. But also, like, you gotta give it up to one of the best theme song instruments of all time, which is basically, I think it's a mallet and a wood block that they use in the theme song, and really, really taking it home for me.
One of the original instruments. It's so simple.
11 out of 10, horrible time signature, but great rating.
But we actually go to court for the first time.
Oh, thank God.
And, it is not just in the judge's chambers.
Is it in the daytime?
Nope.
No.
It's not dusk either.
Try again.
It's not?
No. But we go into the night court, and Rich, I'm so sorry, but more hijinks are about to ensue.
Famously, I hate hijinks, so I'm going to sit here with my arms crossed.
He loves a caper.
Yeah,
It's a hijink.
yeah, absolutely. Hijinks including, Bull. He is
I
just
like some
sitting
tomfoolery.
under. Oh, that's great because Bull is sitting under a lamp that is oddly shaped, and boy, is that one of the funnier things that I have ever
the
seen.
audience really loses it for this lamp that kind
did
of
they?
maybe looks like a hat on the bailiff. I wrote down in my notes, it looks like a hat. That's the joke.
Yeah, specifically he says, Dan Fielding's character, or Dan Fielding says, pay not attention to the gossip. They look good on you. Which, John Larroquette delivers it flawlessly because he's a professional. But I agree with you in this moment, Rich. I was like, this seems like a bit of a stretch as a joke as a whole.
Yep.
But we see the court. We get our introduction to the judge in his professional duties in this sense. I did love Richard Mole as Bull having to use his hands where the name was written down, and obviously it was in such big text that he had to say Harold T. and then look at the other hand to say Stone. I really, really enjoyed that, as well as the judge standing up, pretending to sit down, and standing up again, and then sitting down. Those were just jokes that, it was late at night when I watched this, and it got me.
Yeah, Harry Stone saying, I've always wanted to see that happen by pranking the gallery in court.
Yeah, judge pranks. this is a thing we all care about and would absolutely abide to this etiquette.
So during this scene, there's a lot of stuff that happens. The judge knows some of the criminals, or the folks who, they need their due process. The folks who were accused of crimes.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Oh, yeah, no.
Allegedly, his buddy Hacksaw.
If you don't say allegedly, Brett Favre will sue you. That is, that's how it happens. But
Can't wait to watch Harry T. Stone preside over that case.
Oh, hell yeah. No. I would pay good money to watch that happen. But there was some instances in this that I thought were actually fairly funny, especially so the main trial of the day, because I feel like this almost has a Love Boat theme to it, where there's some of these little side plots, but then we have our main thing that's happening, and it is the Kerr family, the wife and husband, and the wife shot at the husband, or shot at their ceiling because he was having an affair with a prostitute in this instance. But there were some lines between the two of them that were just really, I enjoyed. One was, your family's all crazy. They all have weird chromosomes and they all look like Slinkies. That was said on a primetime slot in television history, and I'm very happy that someone made reference to Slinkies as a human being, as a figure. What were, in these beginning instances of the trials as a whole, what were your initial thoughts? Rich just is shaking
Rich.
his head. He's so upset at us.
Rich, we're on a verbal medium. You gotta say something, buddy.
Maybe I just audio described Rich this entire episode.
Look, I am all for Harry T. Stone's use of expediting the judicial system, and I'm pro bail reform. Harry T. Stone is probably also pro bail reform if we're talking 2023 right now. He's expediting. He's not getting anyone in some more long-term serious hot water for what they're there for. What was it, a $50 fine for Hacksaw for gambling? All right, Get the hell out. That, I don't know how much $50 is in 1983 in New York, but
it's $500.
Seems doable, especially for someone who gambles a lot. I don't know. The way he is expediting these cases, very funny to me. And if that's there's nothing so far that I've seen. Yeah, give me 8 years of this. So, and that's how long it got. So I'm curious what you guys think, but I'm really trying not to be a downer on this.
I appreciate from a pilot perspective that we're leaning hard into the angle of like Harry's not like other judges. Like Harry's a cool judge, Harry's a fun judge, like Harry has his own way of doing business. This is best exemplified in how he breaks for recess, where he orders the couple and their lawyers to go to a restaurant, have a cup of coffee, talk it out. And the way he says it is so like, there's someone like playing bongos next to him, I like to imagine, or like in his head there's bongos playing. It's very beatniky. But they at least establish like, this is the point of view of this character. He's a man of the people. He connects with, you know, people who come through his office and his chambers. Like he's looking for the best in humanity in a world that probably doesn't have a lot of people like that. That's what makes Harry different.
Yeah, and after this, we, cut to commercial break. We're back in the judge's chambers during recess, and it's obvious that dinner did not go well because it looks like Gail and Dan were both assaulted by someone, if not the Kerrs. But we do end up going back to trial. I just want to say, Dan Fielding, I also have had a shirt that I loved get torn by someone, and I feel your pain very much so. I have never felt more
him
seen.
Slumping in the chair defeated, just saying, I loved my shirt, is such a good Larroquette delivery there.
Yeah, make sure, Geoff, when you edit this later, to put taps on behind you while you're talking about your shirt.
I remember that shirt like it was yesterday. But
Amazing Grace.
Oh no. I will say,
sweet the shirt.
After we return from the judge's chambers, we're resuming trial because obviously it did not work, and you can tell that Harry is sort of down because it didn't work and confused because he thought he read the room appropriately. I really enjoyed that the gallery almost was like a living peanut gallery, right? We're getting all of these comments in the beginning, to which I instantly was like, if we're going to have the literal peanut gallery talking in every episode, I'm out. But then just having the line of, are oohs and ahs okay? And then from then on out, I tracked to see if the gallery said anything more than oohs or ahs. They did not, and I was Jeff went
back and watched every second.
I was tracking the plays, and I was very pleased with the consistency of that as a whole. But we bring out this coin, which is now the coin of justice, as I deemed it in my notes, to just start to decide what's going to happen in this courtroom as a whole.
I have to say, though, I agree with the point you just made, Jeff. I can handle wacky judge. I can handle wacky lawyers. I don't know if I would have been able to handle wacky courtroom. Like, I think that you need to have, like, the normal circumstances to allow these characters to thrive in that world. And if everyone is just throwing stuff against the wall, yeah, it's going to get old really quick. So I'm glad that they had a moment where it's like, oh, everyone at the gallery is suddenly invested in this domestic case. But I'm also glad that they got the high joke out of our oohs and ahs okay, and they just ended that bit right there and moved on.
But some interesting... I did like... So, as this coin of justice starts going around, there was one bit that I really enjoyed, and that was the first instance of seeing the coin at work, where he goes up to the woman that Mr. Kerr cheated on his wife with and said, heads, you are excused from the court. Tails, you're going to prison, right? And he flips the coin, and she makes a mention. He's like, it's your lucky day. And she says, it could be your lucky day too. Which I just thought was like, it was a very quick line. I really enjoyed that. But I thought it was great as we're seeing the judge go through a lot of these people and say, okay, heads or tails, that we get one of these serious figures to break and to buy into the insanity of this. When Sheila Gardner is like, the defense wants heads. Your Honor, which was just like, that was just such a great moment of seeing this woman, this distressed human being who is bought into the chaos and is disheveled, fully be like, this is the new game, I'm in. This is how I am playing from now on.
And it's a really classic comedy rule, too, because that's on the third coin flip when Sheila Gardner breaks and yells the defense wants heads. So it's that comic rule of threes, and they do a really fun job of heightening this game. A really quick side note I found out is that any time in the show where there were people in court who were sex workers of any kind whatsoever, Reinhold Weege would always name them for friends of his. Like, all the characters who were sex workers were friends of his in real life, and that was his little way of like saying hello to friends and family.
That's amazing, and I don't know how I do that in my life.
It's like the creator of Monk naming a murder victim after his wife. That's very, very funny.
That's great.
So I do in particular enjoy. Okay, so for shows like this, for shows that are like more than 20 years old, I have to try to go back and think about the context in which they were pitched. And this particular moment with like people cutting in, you know, like a lot more lines and focus on the people who are having their their court case read out loud, and like, you know, this dispute, this domestic dispute between Phil and Louise. I think more about like, okay, number one, what do we want? We want a lot of jokes per minute. So a lot of back and forth, a lot of short dialogue. You know, stuff is going to be ping-ponging around the room. What you also want is the ability around this particular moment in time is that you want a lot of opportunity for guest stars to show up. And that is people who are going to have their court cases read, people who are going to be in the gallery and stuff like that. And my God, they have like an insane list of guest appearances on this show and its entire run. The wildest one being a animated Wile E. Coyote showing up in Night Court and having a case read to Harry T. Stone, and it is. And I think what makes me appreciate it more is seeing the business and production nature of it behind all this. Like, the jokes are really not hitting it for me still, but it was nice to see, like, okay, this is what, I mean, for a pilot season that was as weak as this year's was, like, I can see why they chose this one. Like, one of my friends who's a TV writer, he will write specifically for the commercial breaks. He will make sure that that every act is broken up like very succinctly around where they can monetize the show. And I think that's a very smart way to do it. And so I'm working backwards and seeing like how they made this a popular show, or at least a show where they can get like a pretty long run out of and a very low budget. I mean, I think this does a terrific job. Obviously, you know, I don't remember when like Doogie Howser came about, but this is very much like a court system wunderkind kind of thing with Harry T. Stone. It's like, I'm going to solve these problems without sending a ton of people to jail.
Well, if you also think about, Blake and I just heard Family Ties with Michael J. Fox as Alex P. Keaton. This sort of slick, you know, I don't know, we'll call him the hippest Republican in sitcom history. But this idea of like the young, fast-talking, cool kid on the block was definitely something that NBC was leaning into. Also, when we talk about the 80s on this show, we always have to remember that this is when there's like a boom in variety hours and variety shows in the late 70s, early 80s. So we're not doing these slice of life family comedies anymore. We're trying to hit you with jokes. It's a lot more like character driven than like overall like story arc driven. And I think this show does a really good job of capturing the type of comedy with like the sketch boom and the character and variety boom of its era.
Yeah, very well put. So let's just talk about what ended up happening in this trial. The judge goes to Louise and Philip and basically says, hey, heads, Louise goes to prison for 7 years. Tails, she does not. And we get a break. We get a breakthrough where we get the admittance that she is not trying to kill him. And Phil just says, hey, I love her. I don't want her to be charged with anything. They embrace. And then, I always love seeing who is a featured character in a montage because you expect them to be in the show a lot. And one of those characters was bailiff Selma Hacker, played by Selma Diamond. Selma Diamond had one line in this show, and that line was, I had a husband just like that, pause, I had to shoot him too. That was all she said, and she was a featured character in this show.
Yeah,
and I want to meet her agent.
Though.
She absolutely killed it. But after this trial, right, we see an empty courtroom. We see Harry listening to what I presume is some jazz music.
Jazz legend Mel Torme.
Yeah. Listening, and then we learn a little bit more, thanks to the questioning of Lana Wagner, of how Harry got this job as a whole. And it's very simple, folks. Some great career advice. Just stay home. If you have plans, cancel them. Or have your cell phone on ring. Anywhere. That's including the movie theater, a really nice restaurant. Have your cell phone on ring so that you get the notification when the mayor is calling you to give you a judge slot. This scene almost seemed out of character for the show, given all the hijinks that were ensuing. But it seemed very, very genuine, which for me almost like threw me off, like, because I was like, okay, wacky comedy the entire time. Now it's like, oh, like Harry is dealing with imposter syndrome like almost every millennial ever.
So I'll say two things on that, Jeff. One, you need to have that second level to a character. In this case, Harry has a really nice line here where he says, my name may have been at the bottom of the list, but like it or not, I was still on that list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no matter what you think of me, I know I deserve to be here. I might be unorthodox. You might not trust me, but I'm good at what I do. And obviously I had eyes on me for some reason. You need to have that to counterbalance all of the hijinks. The second thing is you need to be good at your job. We don't want to watch you fail and flounder. We can watch you struggle in the case of his first attempt to resolve the case not going well and him defeatedly saying, I really thought that was going to work. But you have to be good at the job. You have to see them succeed at the end of the day because no one wants to watch someone who is inappropriate and also incompetent. So I think what this does here at the end is it really brings in both those points. It shows that Harry has depth and heart to him along with his humor. And it also shows that whatever you might think of him, he is good at this.
Very well put, Max.
Yeah.
We do get at the end, though, I thought it was nice when Lana Wagner was like, I thought what you did today was beautiful in court. In this like moment of, he is suffering from imposter syndrome, trying to prove that he deserves to be here. And you have the court clerk who is, in some instances, your assistant in the court, but also his believer, someone who truly is inspired by what he is doing. And then she says at the end of the pilot, I think this is the last line, it would be an honor to call you Harry. And that is how the pilot ends, as she's in a very unforgiving and unflattering still frame of her smiling with her mouth open. But with that being said...
That's also how my waxer refers to me. It would be an honor to call you Harry.
Well, and to quote the great Harry Stone, that it's fortunate I have that name.
So that's how the pilot ends. And I'd love to hear from you two. Any things that you loved about this pilot that we did not talk about?
We've touched on a little, but I appreciate all the characters. It made me think about why multicam is maybe struggling to succeed in the modern era. And yeah, I mean, you could say that single cam has more free range. They could go anywhere to shoot. They're not bound to the platform sets, whatever. But I feel like a lot of these types of shows today, they're trying to do like just like normal people in multicam world. And for multicam to succeed, you have to play to the rafters. You have to be big. And I think the fact that these are all just characters in that world makes it fun to watch. Like, I agree. 5 minutes into this, the thing with Bowl and the lights, I was like, I really don't know how I'm getting to minute 21. But by the end of it, I was like, oh, okay, like these people are all having fun in this world. These people are all defined. They're all interesting. They all have a point of view. And I was on board by the end, where the first few pages, I was really touch and go.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really think the reason multicam has not worked so well is people don't quite understand that you can't just throw a stand-up in there and expect them to succeed. Multicam is written for stage. It is acted for stage. Like Max said, you play to the rafters. You want someone who's there who can be big. And I think, one of the reasons that, let's say, Big Bang Theory did so well is because Jim Parsons is actually a tremendous actor. Despite no matter what you feel about that show as a whole, or their sense of humor, or kind of like having some lowest common denominator jokes and stuff like that, Jim Parsons is undeniably a really good actor. Like Tony nominated or Tony winning, I can't remember.
At least Tony nominated
now these days. But yeah, he's a classically trained film actor.
Yeah.
He has a theater actor. He has like an MFA in theater. Like he's great as an actor.
And also, like, you have to love each character at a certain point. Like, I think what made Cheers so especially wonderful is that you will end up finding reasons to love each character because you get more about their backstory, you get more about how they think. They might come off as arrogant or lousy or crazy or something like that at any particular point, but you do end up getting a reason to love each person. And I do see, especially with that ending for Harry, it's like yes, he has imposter syndrome. His imposter syndrome looks a lot different than mine, in that he was extremely confident coming into that room to go meet everybody at the beginning of the show.
You should try wearing a mock turtleneck.
I might. But that's only for mock trials. Anyways.
Hey, there you go. Rich Inman, ladies and gentlemen.
And also the writing really has to be there. So it's the writing is so important in delivering any of these multicam lines. Like there's not a lot you can get away with that's just physical. Whereas, I mean, even though there is a lot of like really good physical comedy in this show, it is not nearly as important as it is in single cam. Like, you really need to have expert jokes. You need to have something that's going to really hit that audience. Otherwise, it's going to flop completely. And I think what we've seen with Mulaney is that, like, it didn't seem like they vetted a lot of the jokes and things like that. It's really just like, how strong can you be in that one instance you get a chance to make that laugh, because otherwise you're not getting it back.
Awesome.
What do you think, Geoff?
I think as far as like things I loved about this, I thought this was very refreshing, in the sense of we have watched a lot of, just as you said, Rich, you said it so well that I don't want to, bastardize it by any means, but like sitcom writers could learn a lesson from this pilot, I think, because I think it does do a good job of having a lot of characters that, even though we're meeting all of them for the first time, we're not trying to tell their life story in the pilot. Mm-hmm. There's more episodes coming for that. There's a confidence in how this was written that we're just going to meet the star of the show this episode. We're going to meet the other folks, the supporting actors, a little bit later, learn a little bit more about them. But let's just learn the premise of this situation and let it be driven by our lead actor, which is really interesting and unique. Especially in a time like today where it seems like everyone in the cast has to be the reason why hijinks are happening. But I do want to get to wait a minute moments. Were there any wait a minute moments in this pilot for each of you? No? Perfect pilot?
That's a longer list.
Let it rip.
Go for
God
it, Rich.
damn it. Everything is so unearned. Good God. I really don't think that this is studio audience. I really... So, Max and I are thinking about going to a Frasier reboot live taping.
And I wasn't invited. That just shows how good of friends these two are. They wouldn't say, hey, Geoff, can you make the short drive from St. Paul, Minnesota to L.A.?
to Burbank, California.
To Burbank to go and watch Kelsey Grammer, alum of your high school, perform in the Frasier reboot.
And look, Max and I are going to play along. We're going to be good audience members, but it's not... If a joke isn't hitting, why do you want the people who are there to know that, to like essentially be lied to? It's like faking an orgasm. It's like, who does that serve? And if they don't write the jokes better, then I don't know. It is just, especially with that light bulb scene. The light bulb scene really took me out of it. And I will admit to everyone listening right now, I watched this extremely high, and and you know, I love watching things high because it makes them like recognizably funnier. And it even with the THC pulsing through my heart, there is nothing about a lot of these jokes that hit home for me at all. It's kind of like, and don't get me wrong, like I know that sense of humor has changed and evolved pretty rapidly since, like, you know, the first like comedy shows and everything, comedy like TV shows. Like if you watch Laugh-In right now, it's almost unrecognizable what the jokes are anymore, just because, you know, it's extremely just not of our time. And I don't get that feeling from this. I think the jokes are bad. and I think they tried to really make a lot of visual and physical humor elements that didn't quite work so well. And I personally am not giving this episode 2 if I'm ahead of a network, but if the only thing that they're up against is
Mr.
Whatever the fuck.
Orangutan. An
Mr.
orangutan.
Smith, it didn't Ronald Reagan actually do movies with orangutans at one point? Doesn't he have a movie with a monkey? Is that a reference to that?
In his acting days, he did kind of like B-movie stuff
Yes.
with monkey sidekicks.
There's a
and things
rumor
like
that trickle-down economics was the idea of an orangutan when Ronald Reagan watched him give a banana to another orangutan.
Everybody gets some. All right. Well, I'm gonna just say no to this pilot then.
I think for me, it just like it feels like such a pilot in the sense of maybe it's trying at times a little too hard to get its points across. Like obviously, we have to establish that Harry Stone is an unorthodox, kind of wacky, humorous judge. The canned snake gunshot thing was really jarring to me.
Yeah.
I like the intro of him playing coy on the windowsill, like doing the little voyeurism gag and things like that. And I was fine with the like pranking the gallery with standing up and sitting down. The snake thing was weird, and I felt like you have to hit it over the head because it's a pilot, but that one just didn't do it for me.
Yeah, and what I will say as my only wait a minute moment, more TV montages. I need more of them. Give me more. I want one in the beginning. I want one in the middle. I want
There's
one
only
in...
so many places you can put them, Geoff.
just a TV show that's just a bunch of TV, just a bunch of montages. That's what I need.
Not
NBC,
even a clip show. Not even a clip show.
No.
He just wants a montage.
I just want jazz music with montages.
But Geoff,
please.
Don't you see that we're all saying the same thing, that we want them all to talk less?
That's great. So we do have an in-flight question this week before we get to a legacy of the show.
Yeah.
So we did this episode in honor of the new revival of Night Court that is currently on NBC. We're going to talk about it a little bit within the legacy. But with that being said, can you tell me, and this was asked by our audience, you can ask us in-flight questions in our DMs or voicemail, whatever you choose, what is a TV show that of the early 80s that you believe deserves a revival? And I can even we'll go to the 70s and 60s as well. Hell yeah, let's do it.
Okay. I'm going Taxi. I feel like that's a show that really...
Oh, Rich, I've got bad news about taxis.
in the new hit reboot, Uber. Yeah, that's I completely didn't think about that. Well, anyways, maybe it's a bus dispatch. I don't give a shit. Anyways, I think that show, especially with the reliance on insane acting, that would do exceptionally well right now if you were able to find people who could hold a candle to Danny DeVito and Andy Kaufman.
What about you, Max?
So, just a little bit of background on the revival of Night Court. It is centered around the character of Abby Stone, who is the daughter of Harry T. Stone. So, another NBC sitcom that I think would be fun if it had a, family relative taking over the reins would be Cheers. And I would love to see whether it's a son or daughter or just a relative of Sam Malone's taking over the bar. We're at such an era of like cocktail culture now. Plus, like, I don't know, Mr. Mayor just got canceled, so what's Ted Danson doing?
Yeah.
I think it'd be really fun to see him popping in, like seeing what's become of his bar over the years as it adjusts to reflect the times and reflect cocktail culture while still being like reminiscent of the place it used to be.
Hey, you guys, this is the president of NBC. I just came in to take some notes. Don't worry about any of your IDs being stolen. I am putting your names next to each of them.
So, president of NBC, please don't listen to the first one. Cosby Show. I would like the Cosby. No, I'm kidding.
Whoa. Okay.
So this was interesting because when I heard this question, I started doing research on NBC shows of like the 80s and 90s. And I was like, oh, you know what'd be really fun? Knight Rider. Guess what? It's already been redone. Oh, you know what'd be really fun? Magnum P.I. Done. You know what'd be really fun? Full House. Netflix has it. But I started thinking about shows that I grew up watching reruns of on like... any like late night show or late night network, and one of them was Three's Company. I loved Three's Company,
the original Polycule.
Yeah, like, and I actually think Three's Company in our current like culture would be super interesting as a whole. There could definitely be a lot of interesting jokes, but I think it could be a little bit more deep than some of the surface level jokes of
millennials can't afford to live without roommates now.
Yeah,
so.
no, they can't. We can't buy houses, so how can we not have roommates?
Every show is Three's Company.
Yeah, every show is Three's Company. But I would say that is the one that I sort of looked at it and I was like, that would actually be really a fun remake as a whole. Well, I really like that in-flight question, so I hope you guys did as well. And we look forward to the next one with the next episode. But let's talk a little bit more about the legacy of this show. So this show had 9 seasons and 193 total episodes.
Jesus. Yeah.
The series peaked at number 7 overall TV show for its 4th and 5th season. So right around, which is amazing. 2 seasons in a row, top 10. And the highest it was rated, or its average rating at that time was 23.2. For those who don't understand Nielsen ratings, that means that 23.2% of TV watching Americans were watching Night Court, which is amazing.
That's bananas.
So here's my favorite statistic. There were 33 nominations for the show, 9 wins, including 3 Creative Emmys and 4 Primetime Emmys. Now, when you think a show won 4 Primetime Emmys, there must be some variety in those winners, right? Nope, it was all John Larroquette. He won 4 Primetime Emmys for Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series.
4 years in a row,
4
baby.
years in
Just
a row.
John Larroquette? Damn,
Just John Larroquette.
He went an Edmonton Oilers type streak for...
Yeah, John Larroquette,
Right.
we salute you because friend of the pod for sure and friend of the Emmys. So
Well, can I tag off that?
Oh yeah,
Jeff, really quick?
absolutely.
Yeah, so Larroquette wins in 85, 86, 87, and 88 for supporting actor in a comedy series. After that 4th win in 1988, John Larroquette actually asks the awarding body, to please remove him from future consideration. He takes himself out of consideration
I've
for
heard of
future
this story.
Emmys. He says that he wants to allow other people to have chances to be nominated, to get new shows recognition, and just removes himself from Emmy consideration. So it's 4 years, like, with an asterisk. Who knows, with the popularity of this show, what he would have done.
And I think I heard more about that story, too, is that he didn't want to have more Emmy nominations than who? Was it Andy Griffith or something like that? He was like, it was someone that he really looked up to as an actor, and it was either Andy Griffith or like Lucille Ball or something like that. It's
John
like,
Larroquette just seems like the coolest dude. John, if by some chance of God you're listening to this podcast, please again, just even reply to our DMs. We don't even want you on the pod. If
Jeff,
you're a busy
stop
guy,
sending John Larroquette DMs. Dude, I can't believe I've had to ask you this several times on the air.
Super steamy DMs too. It's just me in a steam room. That's it. But
he's like 75. What are you sending him, letters?
Yes. Yes, the steamiest of letters. They're very damp. So let's talk about...
Hated everything about that.
John Larroquette.
So this show was not only a hit in the United States. It was syndicated in a few different countries. Australia, Canada, Germany, Italy, Spain, and New Zealand all got the experience of Night Court on different networks, syndicated on multiple networks within the U.S. as well. All of the seasons can be found on DVD. I watched this on Amazon Prime for free with advertisements, so you can find it there as well. And Max talked a little bit about the sequel. As of us recording this, based off of the reception of the first 4 episodes, there's already a season 2 in the works of the new Night Court, which is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's already been renewed for season 2. It is NBC's highest rated comedy since 2017, when Will and Grace was revived at the network. And it's the highest rated comedy across the board for any network since 2018, with the premiere of The Conners, the reboot of Roseanne. So while it's crazy that's the highest rated show in 5 years, I really hope that an original one gets these kinds of numbers and love at some point.
That'd probably be super cool.
I think it probably means we will see some of these reboots in the not too distant future. I know that NBC had developed, cast, and scrapped a Murder, She Wrote reboot a few years back with Octavia Spencer. So I don't know if they go back to the well with that one. I don't know if our ideas for Taxi and Cheers get stolen in the next 2 to 3 years or what, but I have a feeling we'll be seeing more things like this. Also would like to know if John Larroquette's Emmys consideration extends to this new one as well, because I have a very good feeling, based on the reception and his legacy, that he will probably get a supporting actor nomination for this, should the terms and conditions of his exemption not apply to this reboot.
I mean, okay, so do shows do network shows even get that like particular love anymore at the Emmys? Is that like, I feel like that's kind of gone out the window with streaming.
There's stuff that cracks through. I mean, obviously right now Abbott Elementary is doing really well with Emmys and Golden Globes, and that's one where it seems like the entire ensemble is getting on the level with nominations as well. There's always stuff that gets through. Will and Grace Revival got through. I have a feeling this one will probably sneak through because of just like the love of the show as a whole. We should also mention that this revival is also the second reunion of Night Court after 30 Rock did it in season 3. The one with the cast of Night Court, where Tracy got the cast together to make Kenneth happy.
That's the only episode of Night Court I've seen, except for this one.
Well, that is the legacy of the show, which now brings us to everyone's favorite Rich's game of the week.
Yay! All right, I'm gonna keep this one quick. I just think this is like funny. I remember stumbling upon a list of very funny names of court cases. Like a long time ago. Maybe it was on a Reddit thread, maybe it was on a Facebook post or something like that. But it took me down a rabbit hole of like the funniest court case names, and boy, are there a lot of them. Here's a couple like real court case names that just so you guys get a feel of what we're talking about. Sure. There's Robin Hood versus the U.S. There is Batman versus Commissioner, which was a someone who is with the last name Batman. Going against the state county commissioner or something like that. There's the United States versus 40 barrels and 20 kegs of Coca-Cola. There's the United States versus approximately 64,695 pounds of shark fins. So basically, essentially how that happens is things get taken or seized at borders, and they have the court case that decides whether or not they can actually cross the border is sure. United States versus that object. So I want you guys to come to a conclusion together. It's a multiple choice question. And I want you to see if you can guess the end of this court case name. It is the state of Pennsylvania versus A, Batman, B, 16 family-sized buckets of fried chicken, C, the New York Knicks organization, D, 1958 Plymouth sedan.
I want.
Okay,
can it be all of them? Can it please be all of them? Can they all be? Can it be all of them together?
Yeah,
Batman,
all of them
chicken,
together.
New York Knicks, and a Plymouth. That sounds like a great script to a movie. Max, what do you think?
I mean, I have to be on brand here, and I have to say that it's C, the New York Knicks.
Yeah. I am going to go against the Plymouth.
Oh, Geoff. For a new disruption in the incomparable winning streak that Max has taken during Rich's Game of the Week. we have a new winner. It is the state of Pennsylvania versus 1958 Plymouth sedan.
Please give context on this case.
Absolutely not. Anyways.
No. Rich, one, thank you for that Game of the Week.
You're welcome.
Two, I was fully prepared for you to be like, we're going to decide if OJ was guilty or not. Yes or no. Just
all
that.
Right, let's get into it.
Let's do it. But you do leave us with one final question. This week, we are not going to ask if we think this show could be made today because, spoiler alert. There's going to be at least 2 seasons of the new
It's
Night
the
Court.
only comedy on TV right now, apparently. It's not an Abbott Elementary.
It's, yeah.
But
I was literally looking up other comedy shows right now just to see what their competition could even be on network TV, and all of them are like HBO, Apple TV, Netflix, HBO, Apple TV, Netflix. It's nothing is on TV right now.
What I will ask, though, as I ask at the end of every week, is that's the other question. Would you continue watching this version of Night Court? And Rich, I'm just gonna ask you, yes or no? Yes
nope.
or no, Rich? Okay.
It's a no for me, Your Honor.
All right. And Max, what about you?
I am going to say yes, I would. I think that anytime you have a performance that wins 4 consecutive Emmys, it's worth checking out, seeing what episodes got them those nominations and those wins. This is also a show where I'll say the same thing I did when we did Love Boat, which is I don't think I would ever watch this show in order. I don't think I'm sitting down and watching all 190 in sequential order, but it has such a rich history of guest stars, both big name people as well as actors who, like, on their come up had appearances on here before they blew up and became household names. So I would be curious to go back and see some people who I love in their early work, or if they got a random big name star. So yes, I will watch it, but not watching it. You know what I mean?
I absolutely do, because I was just thinking, you know what? I'm going to watch this like I'm currently watching Love Boat, where I'm going to look for very special episodes when I'm in the mood and watch just an episode on a one-off. I think this is very much a show where if I'm watching Nick at Night by some chance, and I don't know if Night Court's on Nick at Night, but if it was, and I'm, suffering from insomnia, as I occasionally do, I'll watch an episode of Night Court. Hell yeah. Let me see what hijinks Judge Harry is getting into. Am I going to seek it out? Absolutely not. What I will say is I found this super refreshing. I might watch an episode here or there. Is this on my must-watch list? Absolutely not. But I look forward to possibly watching it again sometime in the future. with that being said, that brings us to our final question from me as we come to a land. Where can we find you two gentlemen?
You can find me with my feet up on the judge's bench, listening to the complete works of Mel Torme. You can also find me on all things social media at Maxwell Singh.
You can find me critiquing other people's sex moves from a window. You can also find me on Instagram at Damn That's Rich, and also follow Max and My Comedy on Jesus Christ. Also follow Max and My Comedy on TikTok at Dadwagon Comedy.
Oh my God, that broke me for a second.
Stay tuned to the end, folks.
You can find me trying to learn new words, one a month for the next couple of months. But you can also find me on social media at RunJeffRun. You can find the TV Pilot's License on YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Pilot's License. If you have a question about the show or for our next episode, you can email us at tvpilotslicense@gmail.com or give us a call at 213-290-1713. Make sure to watch out for our Instagram for sneak previews of our upcoming episodes. And with the plane landed and the seatbelt sign off, we look forward to flying the bright skies of the TV world with you again soon. And until then, court dismissed.
Gavel, 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 gavel.